Works really well today, and on the topic of I'm not self-centered, I just believe the world revolves around me and all my needs, as long as we're singing that song to someone else and not ourselves. True? So on to today. For just to always the constant reminder where I like to start each talk here, because to catch everyone up always on what we're doing this year is our theme for the year is to be a vessel for transformation. And what we've done is we've combined the 12 steps of AA, the 12 spiritual principles of New Thought or of the universe, along with 12 promises and 12 action steps, 12 promises of AA and 12 spiritual action steps. And today being the fourth Sunday that I will speak on the topic of the steps of Step 7, which is humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings, we will look at at our spiritual action step and understand how important this action step is to assisting us in our spiritual growth. When we look at we will grow in selfless service, and we will heal our selfish, narcissistic, and self-centered behaviors and thoughts. Now, I know when we see that, well, there's a part of us that goes, well, you can't be talking about me. That's the first thing that we want to look at, is when we're saying self-centered behaviors and selfish way of being, or narcissistic, the extreme edge of selfishness, is that can't be applying to me. And in my research this last week, I came across many articles that stated the number that they estimate North Americans that are selfish or self-centered is 60%. So whether that's accurately true or not, it's not really hard to figure out, because they can do simple surveys of 1,000 plus people, and that's enough to project out into the world, into North America. So what we're talking about perhaps is a subject that relates to 6 out of 10 people that we meet every day of our life. And the reason that we want to look at how important it is in healing this selfishness, self-centered attitude that perhaps we have developed in our life is because predominantly people that practice any unhealthy behaviors or habits, or to the extreme again, addictions that are not about supporting themselves or other people, are usually those behaviors are caused by being selfish or self-centered. Seldom does anyone ever ask for approval from their loved ones if it's okay to go out and drink as much as they would like, or to go out and gamble the family's rent money or mortgage payment away. Seldom do people say, hey, to my 5 most respected, valuable, loved ones, friends, is it okay if I go out and do this behavior? No, it's secretive. I'm doing it to meet my own needs. And so we want to look at what does it take to heal that. And we've embarked on this wonderful journey for the year, and I'm continuously asking each of us to open up and see, does any of this apply, or is it relevant to us, or have we been standoffish and hesitant to jump in and to practice any of what we've been sharing here for the last 7 months? And what I know about the selfish behavior is it's not fun. It's not fun to be in relationship with anyone that's practicing the selfish behaviors. In fact, what it feels like, if we found ourselves in close proximity to another person that is very self-centered, it kind of leaves you with the feeling of waking up in the morning with a pair of Gandhi's flip-flops as your tongue. Have you ever had that feeling? It kind of leaves a bad taste, if you can imagine that. And maybe if that doesn't make sense, it will as I go on. A woman writes, when I first met my husband, he was thoughtful and kind. Then it was all about us, what we wanted to do, what our plans were, etc. He was very considerate. Within the first couple of months of being married, I started seeing a trend that, well, it may have been there at the beginning and I just didn't notice it, or the honeymoon period of the relationship was over and he felt he could be more himself. Whichever it was, I suddenly came in last at everything. First, I didn't mind going with him to visit his friends, even when I am an introvert. However, he never reciprocates. He doesn't want to visit my friends, and he is always visiting his friends, up to 6 out of 7 days a week. When I suggest we do things, he has too much to do. But if his friends call, he drops everything and goes. He gets upset if I bring this up, telling me that it isn't true. Whenever I go to the store for anything, I always ask if he wants me to pick up something for him. When he goes, he doesn't ask. Well, okay, that could just be being a guy. But then he gets mad at me if I go to the store and don't ask if he wants anything. My office at work was sending me to Florida for a month to a condo on the beach. What a wonderful perk. I thought, what a perfect opportunity for my husband and I to go on vacation and spend some time together. Sure, I'll have to work, but there'll be plenty of extra time for us to hang out. I suggested we drive. He would only drive if we could stop and sightsee on the way. I didn't have that kind of time off from work. I wanted to drive straight there. He said that if we couldn't sightsee on the way, then he didn't want to go with me. When I suggest a restaurant, he suggests another one. If I don't want to go to the one he suggests, then he doesn't want to go, or he spends the entire time criticizing the restaurant and how some people never want to try anything different. I can only guess that it is self-centeredness. What else could it be? I sometimes think he thought he married a passive woman. But then I think that couldn't be it, because I'm not a passive person by nature. Does this sound familiar to anyone? So as I'm going through this, I want you to hear that, okay, I want you to first understand, and what I'm sharing all this is, I want you to really understand what self-centered patterns and behaviors are, and if they're so in any way for you, I want you to think, okay, what do I need to be doing that's the exact opposite? Because I'm going to put up some signs here, some clues that will share with you, and some characteristics that will clarify exactly what self-centeredness is. And the number one way that you can choose how someone is self-centered is by this, or understand. First one, a self-centered person is one who talks about themselves constantly. Constantly. And how you know this is if you've had a conversation with them for, say, half an hour, and at the end of it, if you gave them any kind of quiz about yourself, they would know nothing about you because they've asked nothing about you. I want you to let that one sink in, because I want you to be examining the conversations that you typically have with your close friends, with people around you. Are they consistently about yourself and all that you have to share, what you've done, and you never give them a space to share? Or have you been in relationship or friendships with people that are like that? That their whole content, the whole focus of their subject is about their life, and they could care less about knowing anything about you. One of the great things that my dad taught me growing up, he says, if you want to get to know people, just ask them questions about themselves, because their favorite topic is themselves. So talks about themselves constantly. True? Next one. Does not listen to others well, nor cares to listen what others have to say, and make no bones about it. We can maybe leave off the last part, and makes no bones about it, but cares what little to nothing about what other people have to say. It means they don't value your feelings, your emotions, what's going on with you. They don't see you as important. And so in that way, they feel more important of themselves. And what have we been talking about this month? Healing our grandiosity. So a self-centered person, life is all about them, period. Next one. Self-centered people can cut off or interrupt a conversation. Listen to that one. Now, there's a difference when you're with somebody and you're exchanging creative ideas and you're interjecting constantly, not letting another person finish their whole sentence. And it's so exciting and so stimulating that you can't hardly pause. That's a different type of conversation. That's not the conversation we're talking about here. I'm talking about the conversation that you never get to finish a whole thought before they interrupt and they're turning the conversation back to themselves. Okay? So a conversation they're having with another person, and they start talking about themselves. They don't want to hear what you're doing. They want to talk about themselves. Next 3 or 4. Good job, Dre. They can be vain about their looks, and they're constantly looking at themselves in any reflection they can manage to get to. It means when they're walking down the street, if they see the reflection in the windows, they're looking. They can manage to get to, or constantly preening themselves while the world flies by. When they get in the car, they're always looking, pulling down the mirror right in front of them, the vanity mirror. Looking, seeing how they're doing, making sure they're okay. Okay, and then the next one is, they take but don't give back. They take, but don't give back. Have I spoken? Am I bringing up anybody in one's life? They constantly need reassurance about their looks. How do I look? Have I gained any weight? Boy, that's a tough question. If they don't get enough attention, they will sulk. It means they always have to draw attention to themselves, even when the attention shouldn't be brought to themselves. So if I feel like I'm boring anybody at the moment, it's probably because you're not wanting to hear this. Basically, everything in society is about them. What's happening in the U.S. is about them. What's happening anywhere in the world, it somehow is about them. What's happening at work is somehow about them. But if you ask the people, is what's taking place at work really about, well, no, we don't even know you really work here. So those are some of the more constant characteristics of a self-centered person. Now, to the extreme of self-centeredness, what's that big word that comes in there? To the extreme edge of self-centeredness, a word that in the last 10 years we've heard a lot more of than we did 20, 30, 40 years ago. And what's the word? Narcissism. So to be clear, what narcissism is a pattern of selfishness and self-centeredness that, in the extreme, can be a psychological condition that's been diagnosed as narcissistic personality disorder. People with narcissistic personality disorder lack a healthy emotional core. It means they don't understand when they're harming another person. They don't understand how their actions, how their addictions, how their habits, how their behaviors is impacting the well-being of another person. All they care about is their selves and their needs and their wants being taken care of. And so what this does is that's what perpetuates the cycle of addiction. If you spend any time or have ever battled an addiction for 20, 25 years, there's a chance that narcissistic characteristics were in play. Because when we're continuously harming others by our behavior, it means all we care about is getting our own needs met, and we do not have the awareness that our behavior is impacting others. People with narcissistic personality disorder lack that emotional healthy core. They are driven by a moment-to-moment monitoring of their worth. Since they find it difficult to provide self-worth, they seek it from external sources. They must be right or the center of attention. Their relationships, possessions, or careers must be the best and special. As in the Greek myth, Narcissus, who fell in love with his reflection, narcissistic people are in love with their image and consequently see flaws as mortal sins. Means we don't want, when a person is narcissistic or extremely self-centered, they don't want to admit that they have any flaws as a human being. They are so egotistical around that, admitting that, wow, maybe I'm not perfect in that area. Wow, maybe there's a room that I could improve in a little bit. They often don't want to admit their flaws. While we can have empathy for those suffering this disorder, it can be hard to be around self-centered people. Narcissistic people tend to treat others as objects that exist to simply emotionally feed them. They test others with controlling, ugly behavior. Then, if their partner leaves, they conclude that the partner wasn't good enough and seek a replacement. If their partner stays, they feel validated in their specialness, concluding, if my partner stays with me despite my hurtful behaviors, I must really be exceptional and desirable. If a person that is self-centered, I've always said, if they could just step out of themselves for a minute and be their partner, be their loved one, be their family, be their children, and try to see how difficult it is to love a self-centered narcissistic person. If they understood how straining, how stressful, how hard, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually hard it is to attempt to try to love a narcissistic, self-centered person, it's hard to believe that they wouldn't change. If they wouldn't change immediately, that's because they are so wounded at their emotional core that they need extreme help. But if we could just when we've been self-centered in our life, if we could step back and go, wow, God, it must have been hard to love me. But do we do that? No. Do we ever go up and think, hey, for that period of time in my life when I was really being focused on myself, on my own needs and wants, and being really selfish as the father, as the mother of this family, or as the parent, I want to apologize to you for that time. I want to make it up. I want to do better for those behaviors. Do we do that? No. We just go on. Just keep on loving me. Life is about me, so everybody needs to love me. And we're talking about 60% of the people we come in contact with. And that might be a safe estimate. So now here's the big one. I want you guys to really get this, and I have a cute little line so you won't forget it. Because this is what we think. Because you see, as human beings, we're naive. We really are. We think that if we love one of these self-centered narcissistic people enough, it will what them? Change. Fix them. If we just love, do enough, we just go to the store enough times, we're just kind enough, we just give enough, that'll change them, right? That's how our approach has been up till now on how to fix or how to heal that self-centered behavior, because that can't be the way they really are. And we make excuses. Your mother probably made excuses for your dad, or your dad for your mom, however way it was. And we bought into it. So now we make excuses for other people's behavior. Because we still haven't come to grips that mom or dad was narcissistic, self-centered. So then if they weren't, no one else can be. So then we get in a relationship because we're only comfortable with being in a relationship with people that are focused on themselves. So here's the line. In dealing with narcissistic people, don't expect to change them. Because it's like trying to circumcise a mosquito. It's just not going to happen. Everybody looks at Crystal. Why is he talking like that? In Oklahoma, that line works, all right? So the question comes then, how did we get this way? Went to Oklahoma for 15, I don't know. How do we get this way? It comes from, and I want you to listen, this is where self-centered behavior comes from. If your parents were this much self-centered, just this much, it means that when they brought you into this world, they may not have been as aware or had understood the importance of meeting your emotional, physical, mental needs when you were a little child. It means they always weren't there. They didn't comfort you. They didn't nurture you enough. They didn't care. They didn't touch you enough. They didn't spend time. All those things. 24 hours a day. For the last 2.5, 3 years, there is a lot of energy that goes into meeting my daughter's spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, and physical needs. And if I was self-centered, or my wife, who's as giving as they come, was self-centered in any way, Liberty would not be turning into the magnificent or continuing to be the magnificent spirit that she is. If I focus on myself and says, hey, just go watch TV. You know what that go watch TV turns out to be when they're 15, 18 years old? It becomes one of the top 10 addictions of playing or numbing out with computer games or the TV, is a sign that their emotional, mental, physical needs were not being met as a child growing up. That's how big it is in today's society. So what happens then, if our own needs aren't being met when we're little children, then what happens is we have to offset the dysfunction of the household by trying to retain some normalcy. So what we learn is to begin to meet our own needs, however that is. Maybe it's through we eat a little extra food. Ice cream really tastes good when mom and dad's away. Or a little extra TV, or whatever it becomes. It grows into. When I was growing up, there wasn't the computer. There wasn't all the text messaging. Where the average kid right now sends, on the average, 100 text messages a day. There wasn't all those distractions. So what I had to learn is how to take care of myself. Okay, that's what I had to do to survive growing up as a single child with a single parent after I was 13. But with both parents working, being left alone a lot, I had to learn to take care of my own needs first and foremost, because there wasn't always somebody else around to meet those needs. What happens, though, is we're supposed to grow out of that as we mature in adulthood. But instead, what we often do is we even get worse. where it would take really Mother Teresa, it would take Dr. King, it would take Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Muhammad, all rolled into a husband and wife or a mother and father or a partner to meet that person's needs because they've become so specialized. They're so finicky to meet that person's needs. It's like, God, you can't look at them this way. You can't cook this type of food. You can't have the curtains up. You can't have them down. You can't have the curtain window open. You can't have it closed. You can't listen to this type of music. There's so many little things you got to dance around that person's needs that after a while you think you're the crazy one. So have you made another person crazy in your life? Or have you allowed another person to consume your well-being that you felt as if you're crazy and you're losing it because you have lost yourself in their self-centeredness? I'm talking to this half of the room. Yeah. Individuals with this disorder rarely think that they have a problem until they're on the verge of losing everything. When their partner says, I'm moving out. This relationship is over. Or their kids say, I can't stand you anymore. I'm not coming over. Okay, I'll change. And how long does that change can be maintained? A couple of weeks, maybe. Maybe. So even then, their primary focus, and listen to this, may be to maintain their veneer rather than to get to the root of their problem. What is causing them to be self-centered? What is causing them is mom and dad didn't love and nurture them growing up, and they've never mourned that fact that it's not going to happen. So their attempt, their hope is that if I'm self-centered enough, you will meet every need that I have. Only thing is, as an adult, can another person meet every need that you have? No, but do we understand that when we get all caught up in love and sex and romance and all? No. No. So, what's important is that if we're around, we work with, or in relationship with self-centered people, is that we learn to play our own game and not theirs. The minute you start competing with a narcissist, self-centered person, you've lost. When you're around a narcissistic person, focus on being the person you want to be and liking who you are. Be honest with yourself. Sometimes we mistake a narcissist person's certainty for strength because they're so sure of themselves. If you struggle with low self-esteem, you are almost guaranteed you will be attracted to a narcissist. Being around someone who seems so confident may give you a temporary boost in your self-esteem. However, in the long run, you are better off attending to the causes of your low self-image rather than catching reflected light from the self-centered person, even if it means a period of loneliness in your life. So it's no wonder why self-centeredness is typically viewed as the most unappealing personality trait in a potential friend or partner. Most of us struggle to maintain a sense of compassion and understanding toward others. Self-centered people, on the other hand, don't bother to take the time to understand another person's point of view or their feelings. Here is a look into the world of the self-centered person and an explanation of common personality traits associated with self-centeredness. In an article from the New Scientist magazine entitled Self-Centered Cultures Narrow Your Viewpoint, recently reported that cultures that emphasize individualism, such as North America, we are strong at emphasizing individualism, fail at being able to infer another person's perspective. Cultures that emphasize interdependence, in other words, a culture of depending on each other, on the other hand, like those in Asia, are easily able to put themselves in the shoes of others and become more empathetic. Now here's the difference, and I love this. A Texas corporation aiming to improve productivity told its employees to look in the mirror and say, I am beautiful. Now how many times have we been told? I've told that so many times up here. Do your affirmation. I'm beautiful, I am loving, I am good, all those sort of things. They told their employees to say that 100 times before coming to work. In contrast, a Japanese supermarket instructed its employees to begin their day by telling each other, "You are beautiful." So I want you for a moment to see the difference. Put your hand on your heart, close your eyes. We've all been told this is a good thing, and I'm not saying it's good or bad. I want you to just try it. I am beautiful. Say that. Now I want you to open your eyes. I want you to stretch out of your comfort zone a little bit and make eye contact with somebody around your table. And you may have to say it more than one time. I want you to say, "You are beautiful." So notice the difference? Because the great thing is, here's what I want you to understand. Your mind, your neuro-linguistic brain that you are programming with every thought, with every action, and it wants to mirror and reflect and continue that type of behavior, whatever it is that you're repeating at the moment. When you say "you are," it does not know the difference whether you're talking about another person or yourself. You. Who is you? So whether you say "you are wonderful" or you're saying it to yourself or to another person, the brain does not discern between the two. Do you understand that? So when you go up and compliment somebody and you say "you are beautiful," "you are good," you are fantastic," "you are beautiful," all those things, the mind hears it as the same as if you're saying "I am." That's the great thing. So when you're complimenting another person, the mind doesn't know the difference, nor does it know the difference when you're criticizing another person, whether you're talking about another person or yourself. So you are. Isn't that a wonderful way to look at it? What if we began each day by going to work or when we wake up in the morning, just looking at our person that we're next to or the first people we come in contact, "You are," and follow it up. You're looking pretty bad this morning. I had to throw that out. I can only be nice so long, get all whacked. Last little bit here. What is it about North American culture that applauds being self-centered? And why is it that so many North Americans can take the bait? Our current culture not only supports but requests that individuals put themselves and their own happiness first. Yet we're taught over and over, if you want happiness for yourself, help others be happy first. If you have a happy family, like I do, I got 2 kids and Crystal. Well, it's like 3 kids sometimes. It is, in a good way. Oh, you're not, no, it is good. What, you're all missing the point there. Having 3 loved ones that are like kid-like, childlike, is perfect, because then I fit in. But what it is it's that innocence and that purity and that happiness. You have 3 people in your house that are those childlike qualities that are happy. You stick out like a sore thumb if you're not, as Crystal knows. So, according to Mark Drummond, a psychologist who specializes in personality disorders, now listen to this, because this is what happens when people get into self-help and then use it as a crutch to confirm their self-centered behaviors. And what they say is being self-caring is considered healthy, but many mistake that for being self-centered. Young people today do not show the same amount of concern that the youth of the past generations expressed for the state of their country or for current affairs that either directly affect or will soon directly affect them and their loved ones. Self-caring means that you have concern for others, but not at the expense of yourself. Those of today's generations have taken it to an unprecedented level and seem to take pride in being self-centered and for only caring about their needs and wants. They are completely self-driven and more concerned with their image and materialistic things than issues that affect the entire country and even the rest of the world. So where do we start in healing our self-centered behavior? If you or someone else that may be self-centered, number 1 is try therapy, counseling. It can easily be healed. Self-centeredness, selfish behavior. Narcissism takes a huge amount of work. And one of the most important ones that I'm going to implore you to continue to look at is meditating. at least 15 to 20 minutes a day. It is becoming such an accepted practice now in the world that major news stations are doing stories on it. If you are still not one who practices meditation 15 to 20 minutes, and I'll give you 5 days a week, I continue to ask why? Why? You're only harming yourself. Watch this special by ABC News, Nightline. No internet connection. Okay, so here's what it says. Luckily I have it in what it says. It says, this was a recent story on Nightline. If any of you have ever watched Nightline for the last 25, 30 years that it's been on, it was just on Thursday night, this special, which included the Dalai Lama. It says, a quiet explosion of new research indicating that meditation can physically change the brain in astonishing ways has started to push into the mainstream. Several studies suggest that these changes through meditation can make you happier, less stressed, even nicer to other people. It can help you control your eating habits and even reduce chronic pain, all the while without taking prescription medication. Meditation is an intimate and intense exercise that can be done solo or in a group. And one study showed that 20 million Americans say they practice meditation. It has been used to help treat addictions, to clear psoriasis, and even to help men with impotence. The U.S. Marines are testing meditation to see if it makes for more focused, effective soldiers. Corporate executives such as Google, General Mills, Target, and Aetna Insurance, as well as students in some of the nation's classrooms, are using meditation. Various celebrities are also known meditators, including Richard Gere, Goldie Hawn, Heather Graham, and Rivers Cuomo, the lead singer of the band Weezer. In one study, a research team from Massachusetts General Hospital looked at the brain scans of 16 people before and after they participated in an 8-week course in mindful meditation. The study, published in the January issue of Psychiatry Research, Neuroimaging, concluded that after completing the course, parts of the participants' brains associated with compassion and self-awareness grew, and parts associated with stress shrank. Recently, the Dalai Lama granted permission for his monks, who are master meditators, to have their brains studied at the University of Wisconsin. The University of Wisconsin is one of the leading universities in all of the world on neural research. One of the most high-tech brain labs in the world. Richie Davidson, a PhD at the university, and his colleagues led the study and said they were amazed by what they found in the monks' brain activity readouts. Now here's what many of us think, that when we meditate, our brain waves would actually what? Slow down. And that when we're like this and stimulated by this exciting talk that's just really reaching in and making your brains work extra hard, that the brain would be jumping all around. Right? The brain waves go all like that. Here's what they found. During meditation, the electroencephalogram patterns increased. That means the waves bounced more during meditation than the initial baseline from a non-meditative state. Are you hearing that? The brain actually becomes more active. Activity is what brings in creation, what welcomes creativity, imagination, intuition. When we're just sitting here, the brain isn't bouncing as much as it should be. So that's why I'm always trying to talk and tends to get you all going so the brain gets bouncing. I don't know. But you don't have to be a monk to benefit from meditation, which is now gaining acceptance in the field of medicine. Physicians have increasingly started prescribing meditation instead of pills to benefit their patients. A Harvard Medical School report released in May found that more than 6 million Americans have been recommended meditation and other mind-body therapies by conventional healthcare providers. So now see, now that they're saying it, it's good. New Thought churches that have been preaching it for 100 years and other places of practitioners that have practiced meditation, they were just kind of not sure. But now that the science is saying it's good, now we know it's okay to do. What they found is perhaps The most mind-bending potential benefit of meditation is that it will actually make practitioners nicer. Chuck Rayson, a professor at Emory University, conducted a meditation study in which he hooked up microphones to participants who had been taught basic meditation and those who hadn't. He then recorded them at random over a period of time. Rayson found that these newly trained meditators use less harsh language than people who had no meditation experience. And finally, they were more empathetic with people, Rayson said. They were spending more time with other people. They laugh more. You know, all those important things. They didn't use the word I as much. They begin using the word we more. You see, when you meditate and open yourselves up to that impressive infinite universe that we're all created out of, that we all live within, and you start realizing that you're connected to this infinite source that's connected to 200 billion galaxies the size of the Milky Way or larger, when you start, you forget all about the I, and you understand there's a we here. There is a universal power that we're much more connected to than perhaps we've ever gave ourselves credit for. Then we understand it's not about I. The universe doesn't revolve around you. However, even the Dalai Lama admitted that meditation is not the silver bullet cure for all or for every ailment or emotion. This is what the Dalai Lama says. Occasionally, I lose my temper, he said. Now listen to this, because there's some in here that think you never lose your temper or it's bad. He says, if someone is never to lose temper, then perhaps they may come from outer space and be real strange. The Dalai Lama is considered by many to be the most spiritually awakened person on our planet. And you can't have any idea how many people I've said, oh my God, I can't ever get angry. I can't allow my anger feeling, my emotions to come out. I've been teaching people to let their emotions come out for 25 years through anger. But instead, we kick it out covertly or sideways on those around us instead of directly releasing it in a healthy way. The Dalai Lama is saying, if you think you don't get angry, or you suppress it, you must be from outer space. Very strange, he says. The Dalai Lama also cautioned that meditation takes patience. So new meditators should not expect immediate results. The enlightenment not depend on rank, he said, laughing. It depends on practice. Some scientists believe that in a generation, Americans will see meditation as being essential to maintaining a healthy lifestyle as diet and exercise. So why do we, at the beginning of every service, we spend 5 minutes in meditative, reflecting on a reading. Then we spend 5 minutes nurturing our soul with music. One of the most positive ways to nurture your soul, that's called self-care. And then we do movement. And many people still may come in here and go, well, that's really weird. Really? No, you should have tried it 50 years ago when my mother first started teaching meditation, first started teaching yoga. She was continuously seen as an outcast, as a weirdo. Now her ideas are becoming mainstream, as well as those that went before us and were brave enough to take a left turn when everybody else was taking a right turn. Let us pray.